Did you write that?
That sounds like me.
Okay.
This was brutal. This liberal professor came into the hearing acting like she was some neutral constitutional scholar, but then Kennedy started reading her own tweets back to her and she lost the plot.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I apologize for having to miss the testimony of some of you, and I appreciate you coming today. Professor Franks, let me ask you, I listened to your and Ms. Hemingway's testimony and Professor Turley's, so I got part of it. As I understand it, your position, Professor Franks, is that I think you used the word myth. It is a myth that the Biden administration used government to compel speech, private speech, but that the Trump administration is doing that. Is that a fair characterization?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Do you think perhaps you're allowing your personal political beliefs to affect your objectivity here?
No, I do not. What is guiding my answers here is that I'm looking to see what the Supreme Court has said. You notice that in the testimony about the censorship industrial complex.
I got that part.
I just
want
to clarify.
No, but I've only got 5 minutes. Your answer is no, as I appreciate it. Let me ask you a couple questions. You wrote a law review article in December of 2023 for the New York University Law Review, and it was about the two cases, Bruin, Supreme Court case, and Dobbs. Remember that article?
Yes, I do.
Okay. In this article, you said, I'm going to quote your words, taken together, these two cases demonstrate that the Supreme Court has embraced the use of the Constitution as a tool of racial patriarchy, end quote. Did you say that?
Yes.
Okay. And then you went on to say, quote, when the Supreme Court declares that there is a constitutional right to armed self-defense in public, it openly embraces and promotes a culture that privileges white men's ability to terrorize and kill those that they perceive as threats, close quote. Did I read that correctly?
I believe so. Thank you for reading.
Okay. And did you also say in that article, I'm going to quote again, quote, by simultaneously expanding white men's right to kill and constricting women's right not to die, this Supreme Court, referring to the current United States Supreme Court, has turned the Constitution into a homicide pact as well, close quote. Did you write that?
That sounds like me.
Okay. In November of 2024, you tweet, don't you?
I'm not sure what the current terminology is for it, but yes, I am sometimes on the social platform that was formerly known as Twitter.
Yeah, you're on a lot, aren't you?
I'm not sure what the relevance of that is.
You try to be provocative on there, don't you?
Again, I'm not sure what the relevance
well,
of this question is.
Let me show you the relevance. On November 7th, 2024, from your tweet, here's one of your tweets at 2:41 p.m., quote, the majority of Americans hate women. The majority of Americans hate women more than they love anything, including democracy, close quote. Did I read that correctly?
I am not sure what this has to do with the subject matter of this.
Did you say it?
I do not have those words in front of me. I probably said something along those lines, but what is the relevance of that to this
hearing? Here it is, big as Dallas, right there.
Yes.
But your political beliefs don't impact your feelings about President Biden or President Trump.
I don't have feelings about either of them. What I have
Sounds
is
to me like you have your favorite feeling is anger. Let me ask you this. You issued another tweet. This was in May of 2022. You've just been tweeting up a storm. You said, quote, there's a reason why the conservative-dominated Supreme Court thinks the Constitution does not contain a right to an abortion, but is convinced that it contains an individual right to possess firearms. And that reason is white male supremacy, close quote. Did I read that correctly?
Is there a question in this?
Did I read that correctly? That's
Is there
my
a question that is relevant to this hearing?
Did I read that correctly? Do you really think that the United States Supreme Court, you're an officer of the court, is guided by white male supremacy?
I believe that the First Amendment prohibits the president
Did you
other
say
state
that?
officials for punishing people for
Did
their
you honestly say that, Professor?
I
And you
believe
expect us,
that the First
as a
Amendment,
Democratic witness, to take you seriously? Are you kidding me?
I believe that you should take
You
the First
heard of
Amendment
curb your
seriously, sir.
enthusiasm? Here's my saying, curb my nausea.
I
Thank you.
believe that you
The
should take
time
the First
has
Amendment
expired. Thank
seriously.
you. Senator Durbin.
If there was ever a perfect example of why Americans are losing faith in academia, the media, and these so-called constitutional experts, this hearing was it. Senator John Kennedy didn't need some complicated legal trap. He didn't need to raise his voice. He simply read this professor's own words back to her, and the entire image of neutral scholar collapsed in real time. What made this exchange so powerful is that Kennedy exposed something conservatives have been saying for years. A lot of these academic figures are not objective analysts. They are political activists with degrees. They walk into hearings pretending to be above politics, pretending to be guided only by the law and the Constitution. But then you look at what they actually say outside the classroom and it's pure ideological rage. This professor wasn't just criticizing a court ruling here or there. She was accusing the Supreme Court of embracing racial patriarchy. She claimed the court was promoting white male supremacy. She described constitutional protections like gun rights as tools for white men to terrorize and kill. She even suggested America hates women more than it loves democracy, and then we're supposed to believe none of those views affect her legal analysis. Come on, that's what Kennedy was getting at the entire time. The issue wasn't whether she has a right to say those things. Of course she does. The issue is credibility. If you show up before the Senate presenting yourself as some fair-minded legal authority while publicly posting hyperpartisan political attacks online, people are going to question whether your analysis is driven by constitutional principle or political anger. And honestly, her responses made it worse. Every single time Kennedy asked a direct question, she tried to dodge it. What's the relevance? Is there a question in this? I don't know what this has to do with the hearing. That attitude right there is exactly why so many ordinary Americans feel talked down to by elite institutions. Instead of simply owning her statements and defending them honestly, there was this sense of arrogance, like she couldn't believe anyone had the nerve to challenge her worldview. Meanwhile, Kennedy did what he always does best. He used humor, timing, and plain English to cut through the performance. That curb my nausea line is classic Kennedy because it captured what millions of viewers were probably thinking watching this exchange unfold. And let's be honest about the bigger picture here. This wasn't just about one professor. This hearing touched a nerve because Americans are increasingly seeing political ideology injected into every institution that's supposed to be neutral. Universities, courts, corporate media, government agencies, even scientific and legal organizations. For years, conservatives were mocked for pointing this out. Anytime someone questioned bias in higher education, they were told it was a conspiracy theory. But now these professors openly post political manifestos online, accuse the country of systemic evil, and then appear before Congress insisting they're completely objective. People aren't buying it anymore, and there's another reason this exchange matters right now. Conservatives have spent years warning about censorship, government pressure on speech, and ideological gatekeeping online. The professor tried to frame concerns about the Biden administration's relationship with tech companies as some kind of myth. But Americans remember what happened during COVID, during the election debates, during the Hunter Biden laptop story, and during countless political controversies where dissenting voices were suppressed or labeled misinformation. So when someone with an openly activist worldview says, "Trust us, censorship isn't happening," people naturally become skeptical. That skepticism is growing all across the country. What Kennedy did in this hearing was force the mask off. He showed viewers exactly how radical some of these elite academic voices have become, and he exposed the massive gap between how they present themselves publicly and what they actually believe. And the truth is, this disconnect is becoming politically dangerous for Democrats and the broader left. Regular Americans struggling with inflation, crime, border chaos, and economic uncertainty do not relate to professors talking about racial patriarchy and white male supremacy every 5 minutes. Most people just want fairness, stability, and common sense. That's why moments like this go viral, not because Kennedy was mean, not because it was some flashy gotcha, but because viewers recognized something authentic in the exchange. They saw a senator willing to say what a lot of Americans already feel, that too many powerful cultural figures operate inside an ideological bubble completely disconnected from reality. And here's the irony in all of this. The professor came into that hearing arguing about threats to free speech and government coercion. But by the end of the exchange, the biggest thing viewers noticed was how intolerant and politically consumed parts of academia have become themselves. That's the real story. If you enjoyed this breakdown, hit like, subscribe, and drop your thoughts in the comments. Was Kennedy exposing bias, or did this hearing go too far? Let me know.